how to say no, and why your life depends on it. Everything you think about saying no is wrong, and the reason you're overwhelmed, anxious, and living someone else's life is because you never learned this one skill. You know that person in your grade. They're not in every club. They're not at every party. They don't say yes to everything, but somehow they're thriving. Better grades, less stress, actual free time, real friendships. They seem like they have it figured out. Meanwhile, you're saying yes to everything, drowning in commitments, and wondering why you're miserable despite doing all the right things. Here's what nobody tells you. The ability to say no is the most important skill you'll never learn in school. Not math, not history, not Spanish. This. Because every major decision in your life, every opportunity, every relationship, every path you take or don't take, comes down to whether you can say no to the wrong things so you can say yes to the right ones. In the next 8 minutes, I'm going to show you why 83% of teenagers report feeling overwhelmed by commitments they didn't actually want, and the exact pattern the other 17% follow, the ones who protect their time, energy, and mental health by mastering one word: no. This isn't about being selfish or antisocial. It's about understanding that your life literally depends on your ability to set boundaries. Let's get into it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you're betraying yourself, and your brain keeps score. Stanford researchers studied the psychological impact of unwanted commitments on teenagers. They found that saying yes to things you don't want to do creates something called cognitive dissonance. Your actions don't match your values, and that internal conflict manifests as anxiety, depression, resentment, and burnout. Every yes that should have been a no is a small betrayal, and enough small betrayals destroy you from the inside out. Think about the last time you said yes to something you didn't want to do. How did you feel? Probably trapped, resentful, exhausted. Now think about how you felt after. Probably worse, because you spent energy on something that didn't matter to you while ignoring something that did. That's the hidden cost of saying yes when you mean no. It's not just the time you lose. It's the piece of yourself you give away every single time you prioritize someone else's expectations over your own needs. Here's the deeper problem. You've been conditioned to believe that saying no makes you a bad person, bad friend, bad student, bad child. So you say yes to everything. Yes to joining 3 more clubs for college applications. Yes to going to that party when you'd rather stay home. Yes to helping everyone with their homework while yours piles up. Yes to relationships that drain you. Yes to plans you hate. And all those yeses are slowly suffocating the real you. The person you actually are gets buried under the person everyone expects you to be. Teenagers who master saying no follow a pattern, and it starts with understanding that no is a complete sentence. Harvard developmental psychologists studied adolescent boundary setting and stress levels. They tracked 2 groups with similar academic and social pressures. One group said yes to most requests and invitations to avoid conflict or missing out. The other group said no to anything that didn't align with their priorities or values. Same starting point, same opportunities, different outcomes. 18 months later, the second group reported 74% lower stress levels, higher GPAs, better sleep, stronger relationships, and significantly higher life satisfaction. The first group burned out, anxious, struggling academically, superficial friendships. They were doing everything and accomplishing nothing meaningful. Here's someone who figured this out early. Emma Chamberlain. She built one of the biggest platforms on YouTube as a teenager. Everyone wanted her time. Brands, other creators, fans, events. She could have said yes to everything. Instead, she said no to almost everything. She turned down massive opportunities because they didn't align with what she wanted to build. She said no to the traditional influencer path. She said no to collaborations that didn't feel right. She said no to burning herself out for other people's expectations. And that selectivity made her more successful, not less, because she protected her energy for the things that actually mattered to her. When you start saying no, 3 things happen. First, you reclaim your time. Suddenly, you have hours in your day that were being eaten by commitments you didn't care about. hours you can invest in things that actually matter to you: sleep, hobbies, real friendships, your mental health. Second, you discover who your real friends are. The people who respect your no are your people. The ones who get mad or guilt trip, you were only around because you were useful, not because they valued you. Third, you become yourself again. That person buried under everyone else's expectations, they come back, and you realize you've been living someone else's life in your body. Quick question. When was the last time you did something purely because you wanted to, not because you felt obligated or feared missing out? If you can't remember, you're not living your life. You're performing in everyone else's, and the performance is killing you. Saying no isn't about being difficult. It's about being honest, with yourself and with others. You can't build your life while you're too busy living everyone else's. Same schedule, same commitments, same people-pleasing patterns. MIT researchers studied the long-term outcomes of teenagers who couldn't say no. They tracked them into their 20s and 30s. The findings are brutal. Those who never learned to set boundaries continued the pattern into adulthood. They ended up in careers they hated because someone told them it was practical. In relationships they stayed in too long because they couldn't say no. With obligations that drained them because they couldn't disappoint people. The teenagers who learned to say no. They built lives they actually wanted. They chose careers based on passion, not pressure. They built relationships based on mutual respect, not obligation. They protected their time and energy for things that mattered. The skill you build now determines the life you live later. If you can't say no to your friend asking you to skip class now, you won't be able to say no to your boss asking you to work weekends in 10 years. If you can't say no to a toxic relationship now, you won't be able to leave one in your 20s. The pattern you set today becomes your default tomorrow. FOMO is destroying your generation. Fear of missing out makes you say yes to everything because you're terrified of being left out. But here's the reality check. You're missing out on your own life by trying to live everyone else's. Yale conducted research on social media, FOMO, and decision-making in teenagers. What they found is that the fear of missing out causes you to make worse decisions, not better ones. You say yes to parties you don't enjoy, events you don't care about, activities that drain you, all because you're afraid of what you might miss. But what are you actually missing? Usually nothing that matters. While you're at a party you hate, you're missing sleep you need. While you're doing activities for college apps that you don't care about, you're missing the chance to develop real skills or interests. While you're maintaining friendships that are one-sided, you're missing the opportunity to build deeper connections with people who actually value you. FOMO makes you think saying yes keeps you from missing out. But saying yes to everything means you're missing out on the most important thing, yourself. So you start saying no to things that don't serve you. And yes, people will be surprised. Yes, some will be upset. Yes, you'll feel like you're missing out at first. But then something shifts. You realize that the parties you skipped didn't matter. The drama you avoided saved you energy. The commitments you declined freed up time for things you actually care about. And the FOMO fades because you're too busy building a life you don't want to escape from. Saying yes to everything doesn't make you likable. It makes you a doormat. Columbia University studied the relationship between boundary setting and peer respect among teenagers. What they found destroys the myth that saying yes makes people like you. Teenagers who said yes to everything were rated as less respectable, less trustworthy, and less desirable as friends than those who had clear boundaries and said no when necessary. Why? Because people don't respect what they can walk all over. When you have no boundaries, people don't see you as nice. They see you as weak, as someone they can use when they need something, as someone without a backbone. But when you say no, something interesting happens. People might not like it at first, but they respect it. They realize you have standards, that your time has value, that you're not just going to fold to make them comfortable. And the people worth having in your life will respect you more for having boundaries, not less. Think about the people you respect most in your life. They probably say no sometimes, right? They have standards. They don't just go along with everything. That's why you respect them. Now think about people who never say no to anything. You probably don't respect them as much. You might even take advantage of their inability to set boundaries. That's human nature. We value what's scarce. We dismiss what's always available. When you say yes to everything, you're teaching people that your time, energy, and presence have no value. When you say no, you're teaching them the opposite. Your mental health depends on your ability to say no. This isn't dramatic, it's literal. The American Psychological Association found that the inability to set boundaries is directly linked to anxiety, depression, and burnout in teenagers. Every commitment you take on that you don't want drains your mental energy. Every person you can't set boundaries with creates stress. Every situation you can't remove yourself from compounds your anxiety. Your mental health isn't separate from your ability to say no. It's directly dependent on it. When you say yes to everything, you're saying no to yourself, no to rest, no to recovery, no to processing your emotions, no to activities that recharge you, no to taking care of your mental health. You can't pour from an empty cup, and if you never say no to others, you never say yes to filling yourself back up. The result? Anxiety, depression, burnout, feeling like you're drowning, and wondering why you're doing everything right, but feeling so wrong. So you start protecting your mental health like it's the most important thing you own. Because it is. You say no to late-night plans when you need sleep. You say no to toxic friendships that drain you. You say no to commitments that create more stress than value. You say no to situations that trigger your anxiety. Not because you're weak or antisocial, but because you understand that your mental health is the foundation of everything else. And if you don't protect it, everything else crumbles. Here's how to actually say no without feeling guilty. Northwestern researchers studied effective boundary communication in adolescents. What they found is that the guilt comes from how you frame it in your mind, not the actual act of saying no. When you think of saying no as letting someone down, you feel guilty. When you think of it as protecting something important, you feel empowered. The reframe matters. So here's the framework. Someone asks you to do something you don't want to do. Instead of thinking, I'm letting them down if I say no, think I'm protecting my time, energy, and mental health by saying no. Instead of I'm being selfish, think I'm being responsible for my own well-being. Instead of they'll be mad at me, think if they can't respect my boundaries, they're not my person. That mental reframe turns guilt into confidence. And once you reframe it, saying no becomes easier. The actual words matter less than you think. You don't need a perfect excuse. You don't need a detailed explanation. You don't need to convince them your no is valid. No is valid because you said it. Here's what it looks like. Can you help me with this? No, I can't. Want to come to this party? No, thanks. Can you join this club? No, I'm not interested. That's it. No justification, no over-explaining, no apologizing for having boundaries. Just a clear, simple no, and then you move on. If you feel like you need to soften it, you can. No, that doesn't work for me. No, I have other priorities. No, I need to focus on my own stuff right now. But notice none of those are excuses. They're not I can't because of this specific reason. They're just clear no's with a brief, honest explanation. Because the moment you give a detailed excuse, you're opening the door for negotiation. You're implying that if the excuse goes away, you'll say yes. Don't do that. Say no and mean it. The transformation isn't complete until saying no feels natural. This isn't about forcing yourself to set boundaries while feeling guilty every time. It's about fundamentally shifting how you see your time, energy, and mental health. When you've truly integrated this, you won't agonize over saying no. You won't feel guilty for protecting yourself. You'll just know what's right for you and honor it. And the people who matter will respect it. The ones who don't will leave. And that's okay. Because you're finally living your life, not performing in theirs. So here's what it comes down to. Your life depends on your ability to say no, not metaphorically, literally. Your mental health depends on it. Your relationships depend on it. Your future depends on it. Because the person who can't say no at 16 becomes the adult who lives everyone else's life at 30. And by then, it's so much harder to change. Most people will watch this and still say yes to everything tomorrow. If you're serious, you won't. Right after this video, identify one commitment you need to quit. one friendship you need to set boundaries in, one invitation you need to decline, one obligation you've been carrying that isn't yours. And say no, not next week, not when it's convenient, today. Text them, tell them, remove yourself, and notice how you feel. Probably guilty at first, then relieved, then lighter, then free. That's what saying no feels like. That's what protecting yourself feels like. Then come back in 90 days and tell me how different your life looks. Because understanding why you need to say no means nothing. Actually, saying it is everything.